transformation isn't static. The destination may stay the same, but the journey or the route almost never does.
Which brings us to this next chapter in today's conversation at Synapse. This morning we spoke about leadership, we debated priorities where most of you voted, and the scale kind of tipped to one side. We discussed execution, we heard stories from the field.
Now, it's time to ask a slightly different question. Even after the program ends, the consultants leave, and the project team moves on. What remains?
Capability. Because organizations don't become resilient by completing one successful transformation. They become resilient when they build the ability to transform again and again.
And our next panel explores exactly that. Playing the long game, building capability models that endure. Moderating this discussion is someone who has spent over 2 decades helping organizations across Europe in building change capability, adaptability, advise executive teams, and lead transformation programs across industries. Please welcome Christoph Organowski back on stage, please.
Can we give a big round of applause for Christoph?
For those of you who don't know him, he's also one of the world's most advanced cross-eye practitioners for change management. His career has been dedicated to helping international organizations navigate complex transformations by bringing together strategy, change leadership, and business execution.
Joining him today are leaders who've built capability not as a one-time initiative, but as an organizational muscle. As I invite each one of them, I request each of you to give your utmost encouragement and cheer. Calling on stage, Arun Narayan Swamy, Senior Director of Engineering and Site Head, Pune at Amadeus. A technology leader with extensive experience building high-performing engineering teams while driving innovation at global scale. I now invite Sumati Bhaskaran, Senior Director, Legal Tech and Site Lead at Lowe's, whose career combines technology leadership with business transformation, creating digital capabilities that enable enterprise growth.
Arun, I'm feeling slightly like the desserts have taken over post-lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give another round of applause, please? I can't hear you loud enough. All right, welcoming Dr. Urmi Chatterjee, Head of HR, India and APJ at Siemens Healthcare, whose work has shaped people, strategy, and organizational transformation across global businesses. Next, I'd like to call on stage George Inasu, Managing Director and GCC Head at Fidelity, a global business leader known for building high-performing capability centers while championing innovation, leadership, and organizational excellence. Next, Shweta Rani, can we have you on stage, please? Head of Human Resources at Zenov, a people's leader who's passionate about building resilient organizations by investing in leadership, talent, and long-term capability development.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Chapter 5, Stage 5 of Synapse 2026, the organizational muscle, playing the long game, building capability models that endure. Christoph, over to you.
Should work? Yes, it does. Thank you very much. So, in fact, before we sit, we were discussing together with our dear panelists how to wake up after lunch. And we consider that we would ask you one thing to do. Please stand up now, find a person you haven't met before, and just meet and greet this person, compliment for something like 30 seconds and then come back. Just one person you haven't met, the new for you. We haven't met Urmi before. Yes. Good to meet you. I like the extreme color. It is very positive. Can you compliment? Yes. Thank you very much.
To meet somebody from Poland.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Urmi, this is for you. George, we kindly ask you to sit.
Okay, sure. Okay. Absolutely.
So Shweta, please kindly. That's yes. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes, I know. It works. So we can just sit and forget, and after hour we... Okay, good. You can slowly start taking your seats back.
Christoph, you opened up a Pandora's box.
We can just relax. The transformation. That's okay. That's okay. People are the most important. Okay, great, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing. Very happy to start. Very unhappy by disrupting you. But life is never easy. Black and white only. Yeah, so please take your seats. And we will take our seats. And we will slowly start. This lovely group in the middle, they are great. Yes. Thank you guys, thank you so much. I hope you made some nice connections. And before we start, I also want to make a connection with one person from a little bit of the past. Is there anybody from Jamnagar here? Or living around? Yes, there are some people. So, there is one story about a person, about the Maharaja of Nawangar at that time. It was before the Second World War. His name was Jam Sahib, and he is a very well-known person in Poland. And why? In 1939, when the war started for Poland, there were many people taken to the east, to Russia, like 800,000, a lot, including children. And some of those children became orphans. And in 1941, 42, they started to, some of them migrated from Russia through Iran, and many of them landed or found their places in India. So if you ask what Polish children did in 40s in India, unfortunate fate, but fortunately they met great people. And as orphans, you know, children 6, 10, teenagers, they not only needed food and medical treatment, but not only school, but they just needed home. And this person, Jam Sahib, gave them home on his private property. He was at that time Maharaja of Nawangar. And the name, I don't remember those names, so I just need to use the card, was Balahadi, or Balachadi, however you call it. That is 25 kilometers from Jamnagar. So he built the whole system that brought those children to reality, to life. Not only providing them with Polish teachers, but also providing them with celebration of Polish important days, holidays, with the church, because most of those children were Christian, and with everything they needed to be back to life. Around 1,000 children found shelter altogether between 42 and 46. So something like 80 years ago, this place finished its existence. And when I was walking in Warsaw some time ago, 10 minutes walk from my high school, there is a monument of Good Maharaja. That's how he's called now. And when the Prime Minister of India visited Warsaw in 24, one of his main points of visit was visiting this monument. And he met the families of those children that still keep great memory of Good Maharaja. Even to that extent, Good Maharaja is respected in Poland, that there are some schools, private schools that have been set up some 30 years back, that chosen by themselves, not by the government, by themselves, children and teachers, chosen the name of the Good Maharaja. So why I bring this story is not only to build connection between Poland and India, but also to show that what he did is something more than just doing a project of helping somebody, a project we would call now maybe. He built something that was sustainably bringing those children to life. And whenever we talk about capabilities in transformation, we think about sustainability. We don't want to make a one-off success, even though it's difficult to achieve this one success, but still we would like to start with something that is really durable. So durability is one thing, but also capability is belonging to the organization. When we think skill, is about one person or individual. When we think competence, it's about the role, but capability belongs to the organization. And the third thing about capability is to scale up, so that it's visible for employees, it's visible for customers. And when you name companies like Microsoft, driven by of course, you know whom the new leader, 10 years, more or less, and he brought learning capability to Microsoft. Then Toyota, problem-solving company. That's the capability they have. Then DBS Bank of Singapore, digitization capability, all digital. So let's talk from this perspective, and I have a great panel of experts here. So I would like to ask the first question in this context. What capabilities are especially important today for your business when you think about transformation, and of course when we have in the back of our heads the topic of AI? And I would like to pass the floor, Urmi, to you first, if you please can share.
Sure. Thank you, and very good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure being here and with the panelists who are there with me. So when I have to think about capability for any transformation, and AI is of course a special case of transformation, but in general also we have been doing transformation over years in companies. I'd like to start with adaptability and agility, right? I mean, even while Christoph was speaking, some companies have gone a little ahead in terms of even adopting AI or some of the changes as it happens over the years. So does the organization have the capability to adapt fast something which is coming up, and being agile also to change some of their existing systems and processes to be able to pick up something new? So that's definitely a capability to think of. The second one I think about is continuous learning, right? Unless you are on a journey of continuous learning as an organization, you're not able to figure out what are the gaps and where do you really need to plug in, right? The third thing, and this is where a little bit of AI creeps in, is about decision making, right? Now, we all know how it's not that if you have to implement AI, it's something very cheap. It's a huge investment for an organization. So the right decision of where do you use humans versus where do you use a technology is a very critical decision that organizations need to make. And we need to have that capability built in to be able to make such a decision making. Last one that I can think about is to do with the simple thing of the organization driving every change to a level, and it's a capability why I'll call out, is to a level where they get to see the results of the change and not leave halfway, which is a little bit of a risk taking. So taking a risk to take up a project where you can do a transformation, and then maybe as it moves forward, the ability to make decisions based on how we are progressing and continue or discontinue, not be rigid about it. So a little bit of a flexibility, I would call it. So those are the top 3 or 4 that I can think of from a transformation point of view.
Thank you very much. That's a great start, and let's review how it looks in other organizations. So digital world.
Sure.
Arun?
First of all, thank you everyone for being part of this this event, and thanks for hosting me here, Mark and team. The way I would put it is with a bit of a story there. Let's say, look at 100 years ago in the age of industrialization, the biggest capability was having machinery, right? Moving towards more information, digital age, it is about accessibility to talent, accessibility to information, right? I would say the new age of information is largely driven by the capability that drives it is adaptability to change, and how quickly can you learn, relearn, and deliver results, right? So everybody's expectation is also going up. The customer expectations are going up. What a customer expected, I mean, we are in the travel tech world, what a customer expected out of an airline or a hotel, even 5 years ago, is very different to today, right? And the change, the rate of change for businesses and rate of change of people within that business driving those change is what I would call adaptability, and that's what is most important for the years to come.
Still, it's not much about technology yet. I'm happy to know, Sumanti, your perspective.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I saw a few stand-up meetings happening just before we started the session, and people were catching up, so hopefully we woke you up. So for me, I mean, in addition to what Arun and Urmi added, right, there's a lot going on, and especially large enterprise landscapes, right? You have legacy systems going on, you have the cutting edge, everything in between. Now this whole AI era has stepped in, and there are tools, multiple things. The pace at which we are going is very fast. I think the key capability that I think, and what we as leaders and organizations that sustain should do is focusing on what really matters, right? And I like this term that we often use in our organization called death by 1,000 use cases. Because when we started AI, right, everyone is jumping into the bandwagon, and we want to do proof of concepts, and all of that is nice, but what is your real outcome? What is the focus you want to do, right? So we had to set up certain governance, things like that, to make sure that, hey, are you really focusing on what matters? Because tomorrow that might change. The market is changing, the geopolitical situation, macroeconomics, things are changing, customers are changing their needs, wants, and it's a very dynamic, fluid situation, right? So how do you really stay focused and do what really matters, cut through the noise and stay focused? I think that's a very, very key capability. And I think even as leaders, right, there's so much going on. What really is your priority and focus? I think that to me, I would say, I mean, in addition to what Urmi and Arun already added.
And also, when I hear prioritization or priority, I see the picture of leaders who want everything now.
Yes, business,
yes,
for instance.
Yes, exactly.
You'll find a backlog of 100 items and everything is needed.
Priority, yes. Yeah. But it's also about, we're going to talk about it later probably, attention that leaders pay to.
Yep.
So that's a good start. Thank you very much, Sumanti. And Shweta, how it looks in your organization? You don't?
It's okay. Thank you, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Mark, for hosting me, and thanks, Chris, for the question. So I represent an organization that helps in setting up GCCs primarily, and being on the forefront of advisory and helping customers, we are naturally expected to be the force that is changing. We are expected to be an organization that knows it all. So from our organization perspective, what's very critical is that we build leaders, or we have leaders who are driving the change by doing. Today, if there is anything prescriptive in the organization, that is already outdated. So how do we ensure that we as an organization become that force that is not just building the data that is available on any open source and people are using that data, but also bringing human intelligence? So for us and from my perspective, I think leadership capability is the crux of what we do. And when you have a strong leader facing the customers, there is a degree of confidence that comes in that they are in safe hands. So that's my take.
Again, leadership. I'm happy to hear that, by the way. And George, over to you, what your perspective looks like.
Sure. So it's interesting that we have a panel here that has two HR leaders on the panel. So at the heart of any change is the human element that is there. So at the end of the day, it's humans or people basically that is going to drive change. So I'll give a simple example of what we've gone through. And I know there'll be a lot of practitioners here who will tell you by the book as to what needs to happen. But I'll tell you what we typically do when we have to make change in our organization. So a few years ago, maybe about 10 years, I'll probably take 2 minutes to just walk you through this. About 10 years ago, we had our GPTW scores. Given there are two of them from HR, they'll know that GPTW is one of those surveys that, today 100% of your employees take it, and your score determines your rank. And the first year, when we did this about 10 years ago, we didn't even qualify to be certified by GPTW. That's like lower than low. You know, it's like you couldn't possibly get there unless you did something really, really poorly. So long story short, we essentially got the leadership together, said, here's the plan. This is not done. We're going to change on how we're going to operate and behave. And across the board, the first step that we did was we allowed people to see all of the data. So every year when the survey would come out, we would make sure that every single employee had access to it. Every single team and team leader had visibility to it. Phase 2 was to basically make sure that as we are driving this change itself, there was no debacle sort. So nobody lost a job because their score was bad. But the only expectation was that if you had a poor score last year, we worked together to basically improve that score and get ahead. And now if you find that somebody is not willing to play ball and things like that, of course we'll have those conversations. The third part is that we came together as a group and said, this is the vision, this is where we're going to go. And the goal at that point of time was to get into the top 100 companies to work for by 2030. I'm glad to say that this is the first year that we broke that. We are 43rd in India. And that journey has been where you could get people to see the vision of where we are going and was not worried to make the change, because if people felt that if they took a chance and they failed and they lost a job, in all likelihood, they would be apprehensive of trying. So again, coming back to, I know there's a lot of points that we mentioned about capability to make change. I feel it's most important that we let your team see where we are going. And once you can show them the vision, it's usually a lot more easier for us to drive the change and get the right behavior within the organization itself.
Thank you very much. So we have the great review of what capabilities you grow, and even though organizations that you represent are operating in various businesses, still there are a lot of commonalities. Especially one what I noticed is about leadership, and I was smiling a little bit when you said it, Shweta, but this is very good that it happens. And this is one of the top capabilities we were discussing before the panel. Happy to hear how you see those leadership skills and capabilities expressed in everyday work, and how you grow those capabilities. And I would like to start, Shweta, with you. How does it look like in your organization?
So for us, leadership capabilities is something that is not prescriptive. There is a broad set of cultural frameworks that we have in place. And one of our framework around culture system is customer obsession. That word is probably the DNA of every individual that is working for our organization. So when you're obsessed with your customer, you don't really go about just giving a prescriptive solution. You go about deep diving into the best practices. You look at the skills that is currently your team has. You go understanding whether these skills are relevant today or not. And as HR practitioners within the organization, what we continuously do is we are re-evaluating every quarter whether these skills are relevant, whether this can be replaced. And when you say replaced, it doesn't mean that we are on that line where we are saying that, hey, your job is no longer relevant right now. So we go about talking on how can we utilize your work hours to equip you better with tools and technology. And that is a freedom that the leader gets to make sure that the team is just not delivering the best result, but also staying attuned with what the market demands in today's time.
So it seems like a very mindful approach with nobody being left behind, but somehow being embedded into what else is needed into organization. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. George, I would like to turn to you and also ask you how you grow leadership, how leadership is expressed in your reality. What are the practices that you use?
Sure. So, leadership, for the most part, I mean, people have natural behaviors that you tend to identify, and that usually shows itself in different forums, right? You have people who are type A personalities, where if as soon as you ask people to raise their hands or ask them to come forward, you find them showing up. And then you have the type B personalities that you have to coax them to getting out of their shell to basically have a conversation. So from a fidelity standpoint, what we do is that we do a lot of behavioral level evaluation of people as part of a lot of our training programs, as well as the way that people get elevated up within the organization itself. So one of our methods to identifying, say people with the right kind of leadership skills is to as they're growing up through the ranks, we identify them. The second part is there is also an aspect which is, even though they may not come with a type A personalities, but they are result oriented to the nth degree. And you can see that as well, even though they may not show up with all the right questions being asked, but you task them with something, you'll know it'll get done. And so you'll start to identify people like that. So you tend to find that from a leadership standpoint, there needs to be somebody who will set the vision where it needs to go. And then you need a team that can effectively execute on it on the ground, so that now it percolates down through the whole organization. So at least from a people standpoint, typically these are things that we do. I mean, our behavioral mechanisms basically identify whether they have the right skill set, and then you look at their results over a period of time to see how we can essentially have them champion changes in the organization itself. And we have programs, smaller programs that will identify for, if it's for GPTW, we have an architect program that will focus on trying to make sure that that person becomes like the fulcrum for a group of people that he can influence. And likewise, there'll be other programs. So if it's tech-related changes that we are trying to drive, we try to make sure that at least at the leadership level, they have visibility to this tech. Because many a times, when transformation happens, people, if they're sitting on the sidelines that they don't have visibility to what the tech can do, many times there's a lot of apprehension, there's a lot of pushback that you tend to find. So we tend to find that as long as they have visibility to it, you tend to find that they are open to the change that is coming in. And then you'll see that results as well. Because now, even though the solution did not give you 100% of the result, but you saw that it worked well in 70% of it, they're willing to accept that 70% and say, we'll do manual workarounds for that 30%, but at least we'll accept the 70%. And that's a big win from an organization standpoint, especially when it's tech-based transformation that gets done. So you need to essentially make, at least from a leadership standpoint, make sure that they have visibility to some of these newer tech that is coming in, if you need to see them sign up and get their teams behind it as well.
Thank you very much. Sounds like another example of using very well whatever talents you have and trying to combine talents with the needs of the organization. Sumanti, in your case, how does it look like? How do you grow leadership capabilities?
Yeah, to me, I mean, if you look at the traditional journey of leadership, right? If you ask people, they'll say, maybe 5 years ago, a leader should have all the answers to the questions I ask, right? And now that paradigm has totally shifted because it's a knowledge economy. You have team members who possess more knowledge than you. Now they might be agents that have more knowledge and all of that, right? So I think it's important as a leader to say, it's okay to say, I don't know. It's ambiguous, it's fluid. I don't know the answer to this question right now, or I don't know the solution to this problem, but I understand the problem statement well, right? So it's important to be, to be aware and to do that in your daily things, to try out new things. And you can talk about it to your teams and say, here are the things I tried and it didn't work, and that's perfectly okay. And to George's point, right? I mean, if there is something, a new tool, something that's coming up, how do we as technologists give guidance to our teams? We must try it out, Again, there are, people with multiple facets of the job here, right? You have people management, technology management, all of that. But how are we as technologists going to give a steer to the team? So we must also be a little hands-on, try it out. Not to the level of, you're going to generate code and check in and commit. Hopefully, not to that level. Maybe some of us already do that. But to be able to understand, how can a problem be solved? So I think it's now, I would say, leadership through inspiration and not through authority. And traditionally, we've been so used to that model and that. It's changed even earlier to the AI era, but now, with AI coming in, it just gives that additional impetus to, to make sure that we break that norm and get into a lead by inspiration model.
So inspiration instead of authority, but also what you say, hands-on involvement in what is really needed from leaders instead of just staying back and asking others to do it.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Arun, if we can move to your case, you have several interesting practices and several interesting ways of looking at leadership development.
Absolutely. So maybe I'll give an example of what we do. In our case, or maybe I'll look at how an industry looks at when a new technology or a new process or new change is needed. They'll say, oh, there is somebody else in the market, let's bring them in, they will make the change for us, right? So it's always seen as a magic pill, somebody is going to fix my problem. We are mostly inward looking as an organization. We would say, okay, let's transform within. I would say in transformative roles, 80 to 90% of positions are filled via internal mobility. And we would put people, the transformation is 2 phases. We would say, okay, let's try it out in a virtual team. I want 5 business units to contribute, become a sponsor at a leadership level, contribute 1 person from your team into this transformation journey, and let's see that work. Once that takes shape, it's taken to the next step where they say, okay, now I want this as a physical team. All this group, which was pilot team, is now going to be the core team and it's going to make a transformation within the organization, right? And that's been a journey over and over again. And I would probably pick a point. I think we've been talking transformation. I think there was also people asking on stage, how many of us are going through a transformation? Anything that's not transforming is dead, right? So in simple terms, every day an organization is evolving. Yesterday, last hour, last minute was different to this minute. Be the business scenario, be the organizational dynamics and people expectation, right? And customer expectations too. So in this whole journey, the leadership needs to evolve, and the core aspect to it is how do you build that muscle within the organizations to keep learning and building new leaders with new capabilities for every phase of the journey of the company.
But one thing comes to my mind, Arun, when you mentioned this, how you provide kind of psychological safety to all the system, to all employees who would like to apply for those new roles and who need to be loyal to their teams and to their bosses.
Yeah, another great point, and I think this is something that I was discussing as well. It's a typical question in an organization when internal mobility is easy. The problem lies somewhere else, right? People don't apply for mobility because they feel somebody will know and they will stop my process, right? Again, maybe bring an example of our own organization. There is absolutely no time limit for people to apply. They can join today. First hour, the manager you don't like the manager, I would want to apply to some other role within the organization. You're applicable to apply, right? So in some ways that brings psychological safety. Second step is also when you apply to mobility positions, your manager is not aware of that until you actually get the position, right? So once you get the position is when the manager is informed that this person has applied and he's going to move. So what this drives is 2 ways. Psychological safety for a person who's applying, and the reverse is also, this becomes a part of the culture where the manager or the leader is incentivized to keep that vision of that team, one at the company level and of that team, where he percolates or he or she percolates it to the team to say, okay, why is it exciting to stay with me and not move internal to the company? So, and again, at the end of the day, at At a company level, it's simple. It's always better to lose an employee to another team than to another company.
Well, I believe this is a very good example of systemic approach to building the capability, because this is like reinforcing some things that you want, and not just enforcing, but reinforcing and enhancing everyone to obey. And this brings us to the next topic when we talk about leadership or any other capability. And Urmi, I would like you to start referring to this. How do we make it sustainable? How do we make it durable in time?
Yeah, I would just say that I'll just take one practice from our organization that we do is, so first of all, leadership needs to be a good mix of the domain technology skills and a fair bit of people mix, right? People management mix, right? And so as in our organization, we have an engagement survey. We do GPTW also, but we do an engagement survey internal across whole of Siemens Healthineers globally every month. So every manager gets a report card every month from their team as to, and it's a very simple 15-minute survey that they need to respond on 10 questions, 10 to 12 questions, which tells the manager how engaged the team is. And what we do when we receive the data and their managers receive the data, every month we have the opportunity to look at where things are going good or not going good. Initially, my thought was whether it's too exhaustive for people to do it every month, but around 55 to 60% of the people across the board respond every month, and aggregated response of around 85, 90%. Now what does is, it's a more sustainable mechanism to know, as a leader, are you talking strategy? Are you doing operations? Are you talking career development? Are you doing conversations related to, even there are times as a leader you need to step up and understand what's driving. And I go back to Arun's point, a lot of this psychological safety that can be created just by your capability as a leader to have those conversations with your team, rather than stopping somebody from joining. And we have ample cases where people, become very selfish with their talent and they don't want to give it to anybody. These all kind of come back to us, and we have the opportunity month on month to look at it and see. And of course, people go through ups and downs, right? I mean, not that every month, every leader will be scoring the highest, but if it's a trend, we look at it as a trend, like for 6 months, we see a complete downward trend for a particular leader. We do have conversations, we help him, sometimes we get an external coach for a leader if they need it, or we work with their managers to figure out. And we work with them on top 2 or 3 things, not too many. But I guess that builds a more sustainable capability development. It's not a one-time fix. It's a continuous journey that we are doing with all of them over a period of time.
And it requires continuity. Shweta, in case of your organization, how you provide sustainability of those capabilities? How do you make sure that it lasts?
So for our organization, when it comes to providing the leadership capabilities and things that individuals take back, we celebrate failures. If somebody has tried, that itself is like a step. And alluding to the panelist point over here, Dr. Sumiti, when she said that it's okay for leaders to say, I don't know it. And there are junior folks who know much more than your leaders. So how are we creating an atmosphere where everyone is open to not just acknowledging that I don't know this, but I am open to learning it, and hey, I have gone a step ahead, learned from this individual, and then I want to acknowledge that individual. So that's a behavior that we celebrate in the organization, and with that behavioral change, we are seeing the adoption being very easy. So today, and like any other organization, we run a lot of AI forums internally for our employees. We have a person who is sitting in our remote center in Tamil Nadu, to a person who is sitting in New York delivering equal number of sessions. So there is no restrictions that just because somebody is coming from an international university gets more preference over somebody who is sitting in a remote center in any of our centers that we operate from. So I think that goes a long way. Secondly is, like I talked about, we keep questioning ourselves. What is that I've done today is not that something that can be replicated. And that's a report that we give to ourselves, and when during our appraisal, that becomes a candid conversation, and our learning programs are structured accordingly.
Thank you very much. I would love to continue this conversation for much longer time, but we need to slowly wrap up, and I would kindly ask you, all 5 of you now, what is one main takeaway regarding what capabilities to grow, how to grow them, what is crucial today that you would like to leave us with? And maybe we can start, Arun, with you.
Okay, so the way I
Please
would
take notes now.
Okay, so I'll probably, looking at the conversation, the way I would put it is AI-led transformation, right? So when we are looking at AI-led transformation, I think there have been a lot of questions which says, will there be an impact to people? Where are people going, etc., right? So the way I would put it is the value of human is shifting left, right? So what it means is the earlier a good decision is made, the better it is for business, and that good decision can be made by humans, and so shift left that decision-making power. So shifting human power to a point where there is more value, right? So if the human is at the end, the value is at the end. If the human is at the beginning, the value is at the beginning. So that's the way to look at it. And that's, in some ways, I think when we were discussing, is about building those capabilities of both human and agents or AI, the way we look at it in a business.
Thank you very much. Urmi, if I can kindly ask you to summarize.
Yeah, I just say that first invest in people and then invest in technology, because a lot of times we are reading that organizations are already thinking, I would adopt AI and what percentage of my employees will go down. It will happen maybe over a period of time, but that's, according to me, that should not be the objective of making a technological transformation. So investment in your people and their capabilities to adopt a technology should precede adopting the technology.
And investing means also giving attention. I would like to underline this. Yes, thank you very much. Shweta, your takeaway for us.
So I do think today it is AI, tomorrow it could be another technology, another thing that's changing. What differentiates an organization or for us to look forward to is, from an organization perspective, spending, and also at the same time balancing it with psychological safety. That is the people leader in me talking, but I do think that goes a long way.
Thank you very much, and we have practical examples how to do it. Thank you. George, your word for us.
So I think I started off with this, that one, I mean, at the heart of every change is people, so you need to carry your people along with you. So set a vision that people can see what is being done, and then make sure that they have visibility to what this change is going to do for them. And then you see a lot more adoption and engagement when you're trying to drive change.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Sumanti.
I get the last word on the bell. Yeah, I would say, going back to focus on what really matters. I think that's, basic. The technology could change. I know that with AI, this is not new, right? Everything that we spoke about has always been skills and, capabilities that we had to build. But AI only has, sort of increased the pace with it. So now I think what is important is stay laser sharp focus on what you want to really delivering the results. But to Urmi's point, taking the people along, right? Because finally, we're still not in a place where the machines are going to do everything for us. Agents won't do everything. Maybe it will. I mean, the surface area of unknowns is quite high now, so maybe it will, but at the point, we are not at that place. So we absolutely need a brilliant team that we can trust, the leaders are trustworthy, and to be able to embark and take that journey. So I would say a combination of both focus and people.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing just a little bit of your stories. I know that it was not just even the beginning from what we discussed, but now it's time for questions. Yes, I see one hand. So, oh, more than one hand, few hands. So please just provide mics. And if you are interested in the concrete person to answer, also please you can name. If not, then we just answer as we want. Please.
Due to the fast pace of change, the tendency of most organizations is to, from people point of view at least, to acquire capability rather than growing it within the organization. So is that the correct approach, or should we also look at growing our capabilities to match with the fast pace of change?
George, please, yes.
So, at least in our perspective, we, especially with new tech, there is a need for visibility for both your teams as well as leadership to have visibility to what the tech can do. So, for you to basically have people say, oh, you need to drive change, but without necessarily having visibility to that, is almost like you're flying blind. So you certainly need to have visibility to it. And so what it does in many cases when they have visibility is that you suddenly realize its capability and you can basically change your scope of what you're trying to do with it. So if I go back a few years ago, RPA was the rage at that point of time. We were all going down that path with RPA, but it was a handful of them who was actually working on RPA. And so when the results started coming out and the results weren't what the business leaders expected, there was a big pushback. But the fact was we hadn't given them exposure to it as it happened, and so which is why the pushback was. But like I said, if you've given them that visibility, then even though you'd only got 70% of the result in, you could have used that 70% effectively, and then the remaining 30% could be a workaround and things like that. So you have to, especially with tech, you have to give them exposure to it and build that capability within your own organization in that tech for it to be successful, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. Urmi, you want to add something?
No, I just want to say a balance of it, because there are sometimes some capabilities we don't realize that internally we can build it. And then we really go out and get it. A lot of times, absolute fresh graduates bring a different perspective to an organization. And we do that because they're thinking very differently, just coming out of the campus on technology, on different things. And of course, the combination of, like I said, that not to think that humans are dispensable. So as you embark into a new journey of technology, it's always worthwhile to take people along and train them on that. So you do a good mix of, who you can train, who has raised their hands for moving into another technology, because it's also the intent of the people. You can't push a set of people and say, I want you to move into data or big data or AI. They raise their hands that they want to stretch, because sometimes you need to do it over and above the work that you are doing, right? So that, but we also go out and bring it when we realize that we don't have enough of it. I mean, just to give a small example, it's just not about technology, even proper domain skills. Like as a healthcare company, we have realized now that we need a lot more clinical skills. And so we are going out into the market and looking for people with clinical also, right? Just not the technology piece of it.
Thank you very much. Next question, please. I think we have space for two. Yes. Yes, please go on.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, hi. Firstly, to the panel, fantastic set of very practical tips that we're taking away. Gold, really gold. My name is Sapna Bharat, and I head HR transformation for Unilever. I have a slightly controversial question, and possibly for Shweta and Urmi from the HR fraternity. Today, as we're building these capability models, it feels like there is a disguised problem in capacity. So do we solve for the capacity issues to start with, or do we solve for capability? Or do they run in parallel, especially given the context today is where businesses are transforming and performing at the same time?
Yes, please, Shweta, please.
Thanks for the question, and my take is it really depends on the customer base that you're solving for. If there is a choice between capacity and capability, the question that I would answer to myself is the workforce that is supporting me in that transformation, is it something that attunes to the customer problems or not? Is my workforce able to, going back again to my customer obsession, I need to make sure that the workforce that's representing to solve for customer problem, they have the capability to solve for it because they come to you with a trust factor. So in that case, I would choose between a capability over a capacity, because even though you may have very few people, but if they are able to deliver excellence using technology, then I think your half the battle is won.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, not much different from what she said. Not in my current organization, my previous organization, we used to really look at talent who could be a multiplier. So basically one talent, but can do maybe 3 times to 4 times. And I'm not talking about hours here, right? I'm just talking about their capability to impact technology or business transformation, whatever you call it, 3 or 4 times than the others. And we started making that as a separate program. So there were people who could come through that route and get trained and become that set of people who could be your fast trackers or your multipliers. So capacity is difficult because most of us as organizations are running with very limited capacities today. We also have our constraints from a capacity standpoint. So how well you can utilize capability, but with the right set of people and seeing the right impact from it. So similar to what she's saying, but really expecting multifold from a separate, more like a Pareto principle, that you really have a 25% of your population also impacting 80% of your objectives or business results.
Thank you very much. We have space for one more question, please. Yes.
Hi.
I think that the person with the mic has a challenge. Yes, yes. Whom to give it? Thank you.
I'm Anil Agarwal. I'm a fintech investor and independent consultant in BFSI space. One of the elements that probably I did not hear in this discussion is the timing in transformation. Sometimes we have the best of the ideas how the transformation should take place, but since we are not the only player in the market, we have to compete in bringing out those services, and how timing plays a very important role between training your internal people vis-a-vis hiring from the market. And I think that changes a lot of the discussion that we have in implementing from a strategy to a implementation stage. So how do you go about handling the timing issue?
Thank you very much. Arun, please.
Sure, great question. The way I would see it is, considering this panel is a bit on the AI side, the way I would look at it is a bit different, right? Timing probably matters for most business changes, right? But in an AI-led transformation, I think it was also George who mentioned it a bit earlier, is a lot of companies were good first followers, right? So somebody makes a big change, you would wait for it to succeed or fail, and then if it's successful, go adopt it, right? The rate of speed of AI transformation is so fast that you can't wait, right? So I would say it's a bit unique for this scenario. Maybe we'll realize that it was not unique and then we'll learn from our mistakes, but looking at the pace at which things are moving, maybe timing is to do now and not wait and watch.
Thank you very much.
I'll just add on a few comments to what Arun said. Absolutely, right? Because even if when the business are looking for a customer need or a new thing that's coming up, they're looking around the market, the industry, the trends, right? So, I mean, there could be another product out there, and if you're going to build that internally, you need to start showing rapid progress. Again, you will not have the first product built, with all the parity features that you need, but at least start off with a bare minimum and, try to make it pace it a little fast, right? Because, if you don't show that progress, how are you going to wait for 6 months or, 3 months until that entire product is coming? I think that's the trick, and sort of challenge we are all grappling with, right? Because you're trying to build something internally, there's something out there. And how do you actually convince or influence people to wait and, watch and see how it could be internally done? But I think pace is very key here, to Arun's point, because earlier the release used to take 6 weeks. Now every week there's a release going on. So, the tools have helped us, to be honest, build that momentum and gear up. But, how do we actually line up the outcomes and, what really matters to business? I think that's something we should keep an eye on.
Thank you very much, Sumanti. I believe that there's a great practicality in both questions and answers here, and I would encourage all of you to approach panelists after the panel. Please just talk to them. I believe that's a great conversation starter. Of course, we could not exploit the whole topic. Like what we discussed was a lot about leadership capabilities. Looks like really to explore AI and to bring ROI from AI transformation. We need those capabilities, not only tech, which is available to everyone almost equally. Then also you were mentioning about business capabilities like customer obsession, customer focus. That's what is also very crucial. We haven't mentioned, in fact, directly capabilities like systemic, like project management, program management, the governance of those, change management. I believe that seems to be somewhere as a prerequisite and in the background so that we can do things right, but we need to know which things to do. And I believe my summary of this panel would be that still looks like the biggest portion of the value from what is available to all organizations is in us, in human. But of course, not just in human, but we need to build capabilities that will enable us to do this effectively. And I recently listened to the conversation with Ben Affleck, the actor. He's very vocal in terms of how AI is impacting movie industry. And his distinction between AI movie makers and human movie makers is that he says, AI movie makers making is like a craft, is knowing what to do and knowing it quite well and being able to deliver impressive results. But the art, which is the domain of human filmmakers, is knowing when to stop. It means when the job is already done, when the job is good enough for our stakeholders, for our customers, for our people. And I believe that's kind of the challenge for us, how to build capabilities that will enable our organization not to forget when to start and when to stop, when things are good enough so that we can be really sustainable on the market. And I would like to leave all of you with this. Thank you very much, dear, great, magnificent five. Thanks for all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as a group of leaders, you've summed up so well that people are the heart of change and transformation. Thank you so much for your collective wisdom and insights this afternoon. Christoph, I request you to share, felicitate the panelists, a small token of appreciation. Arun Narayan Swami. That's okay. Shweta Rani, Head of Human Resources at Zenov. Arun Narayan Swami, Senior Director of Engineering and Site Head Pune at Amadeus. Sumati Bhaskaran, Senior Director Legal Tech and Site Lead at Lowe's. Dr. Urmi Chatterjee, Head of HR, India and APG at Siemens Healthineers. And George Inasu, Managing Director and GCC Head at Fidelity. Can we have a big round of applause for our esteemed panelists?